They saved one human, so we returned for all of them. The dying engineer. The red sand beneath his boots had turned to mud. Not from rain. It never rained on Ra. The moisture came from his own blood, seeping through the makeshift bandages wrapped around his leg. Each step sent fire up his spine, but he kept moving. The alien city's spires gleamed in the distance like crystal needles piercing the orange sky. Behind him, the wreckage of the Prometheus still smoldered. 23 humans dead. Only had crawled from the burning hull, and only because he'd been in the engine room when the patrol ships opened fire. The others, his friends, were ash now. They had laws about survivors, knew them well after 3 years working in their mining colonies. Survivors were to be executed. No exceptions. No mercy. The Great Council had decreed it after the first human rebellion 15 years ago. They called it preventing contamination. Stumbled, his vision blurring. The twin sons of Ra beat down mercilessly, and his water had run out hours ago. His engineering uniform was torn and stained, the blue fabric barely recognizable. He'd been walking for 2 days straight, surviving on emergency rations and stubborn will. A shadow passed overhead, dove behind a boulder, pressing his body against the warm stone. The distinctive hum of a scout flyer filled the air. Through a crack in the rock, he watched the sleek vessel circle the area, its pilot scanning for signs of life. The flyer moved on, but knew they'd be back. They always came back. He forced himself to stand, gritting his teeth against the pain. The city was still 3 kilometers away, too far. His leg was getting worse, and he could feel infection setting in. The crash had driven metal shrapnel deep into his thigh, and without proper medical equipment, he was slowly dying. But didn't quit, not when the mining equipment broke down in the deep tunnels, not when the foreman said a human couldn't understand tech, and not now. The city's outer wall loomed ahead, 30 feet of polished black stone that reflected the orange sky like a dark mirror. Had helped build sections of this wall during his first year on Ra. He knew its weaknesses. 20 meters to his left, hidden behind decorative carvings, was maintenance hatch 47B that had forgotten about it years ago, but remembered everything. Engineers had too. He dragged himself to the hatch, his bloody fingers working the familiar controls. The lock clicked open, one of his own designs, ironically. They were brilliant with energy manipulation and biotechnology, but they'd never mastered mechanical engineering the way humans had. The tunnel beyond was dark and narrow, designed for maintenance robots, not people. Squeezed inside, pulling the hatch shut behind him. The cool air felt like paradise against his fevered skin. He crawled through the tunnel, following memorized blueprints. Left at the first junction. Straight for 50 meters, right at the power coupling. The familiar rhythm of engineering problems soothed his mind, even as his body screamed in protest. The tunnel ended at another hatch, this one opening into the city's lower levels. Pushed it open a crack and peered out. The street beyond was empty except for a few cleaning drones humming past. They rarely came to the lower city. They preferred their towers that stretched toward the sky. Slipped out and immediately ducked into an alley between 2 storage buildings. His vision was getting fuzzy, and he could taste copper in his mouth. He needed help, and fast. But who would help a human? Officially, he didn't exist. The Prometheus was already being listed as destroyed with all hands. No survivors, no loose ends. A sound made him freeze, footsteps, but not the clicking gait of. These were softer, more cautious. Pressed deeper into the shadows, one hand moving to the plasma cutter on his belt. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all he had. A figure appeared at the mouth of the alley. Small, maybe 4 feet tall, with the distinctive purple skin and large black eyes of a child. But this one wore workers' clothes instead of the flowing robes of the upper castes. A lower caste, the forgotten ones. The child saw him and froze. For a long moment they stared at each other across the narrow alley, could see fear in those dark eyes, but also something else. Curiosity. "You're hurt," the child said in accented standard. Her voice was soft, melodic in the way all voices were. "You're bleeding." Said nothing. He'd learned long ago that words could be traps. The child stepped closer, her head tilted to one side. "You're from the ship that fell from the sky, the one the enforcers shot down." Still remained silent, but his hand moved away from the plasma cutter. There was something in the child's voice, something that didn't sound like threat. "My name is," she said. "I saw the fire in the sky, I saw the ships hunting." She paused, her large eyes studying his face. "You shouldn't be alive." I know, finally whispered. Looked around the alley, then back at him. The enforcers will find you soon, they always do. She was quiet for a moment, thinking, but maybe not today. Before could ask what she meant, disappeared around the corner. He slumped against the alley wall, wondering if he'd just signed his own death warrant by trusting an alien child. But 10 minutes later, she returned with an adult with the same purple skin but wearing the robes of a healer. The adult's eyes widened when he saw. What have you done? The healer whispered. He's dying, Uncle said. We can't let him die, it's not right. Looked from his niece too, conflict clear in his expression. The laws. The laws are wrong, said with the absolute certainty only children could muster. You taught me that all life is sacred. Was that a lie? The healer closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. Can you walk? Asked. Nodded, though even that small movement sent pain shooting through his skull. Then follow me, said, quickly, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that the enforcers are still searching the crash site. As struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on the alien healer, he had no idea that this moment, this single act of compassion from two outcasts, would change the fate of every human in the galaxy. The underground. His clinic occupied the basement of an abandoned textile factory in the lower city's industrial district. The had built upward for generations, always reaching for the sky, leaving the ground level to decay and be forgotten. It was perfect for hiding a dying human. Lay on a biofoam table that molded itself to his body, its surface warm and slightly alive in the way technology always was. Worked over his leg with instruments didn't recognize, devices that hummed with energy and seemed to communicate with each other. The infection is worse than I thought, murmured, his four-fingered hands dancing over glowing displays. Your human physiology is challenging to treat. Will he die? Asked from her perch on a supply crate. She'd refused to leave despite her uncle's protests. Not if I can help it, replied, but his recovery will take time, weeks perhaps. Tried to sit up, but the healer's gentle hand pressed him back down. I can't stay here that long, said. They'll find me, they'll find you too. Let me worry about that, said. A bioscanner beeped and he frowned at the readout. Your blood chemistry is fascinating, so different from ours, yet so similar where it matters. Uncle has studied humans for years, explained. He says you're like us, but different in important ways. Different how? Asked, though the pain medication had given him was making it hard to think clearly. Your immune system, said, injecting something into his arm. It's incredibly adaptive, aggressive. Immune systems are specialized, evolved for our specific environment, but humans, you can adapt to almost anything. Felt warmth spreading through his body as the alien medicine took effect. That's why the Council fears us. And exchanged a look. That's part of it, said carefully. Sleep now, we'll talk more when you're stronger. But fought the drowsiness. Why are you helping me? You could be executed for this. Because, said, her voice fierce, 12 years ago humans saved my life. Before could ask what she meant, the medicine pulled him under. He woke to the sound of urgent voices. The basement was dark except for the glow of medical displays. Was speaking rapidly into someone couldn't see, their voices tense with worry. Found the wreckage trail, they know someone survived. How long until? Hours, maybe less. Sat up slowly, his legs still aching but functional. What's happening? Turned, his large eyes reflecting worry. Enforcer Captain is leading the search personally. He's thorough. I need to leave, said, swinging his legs off the table. I won't let you get killed because of me. Where will you go? Asked. The city is surrounded, the spaceports are watched, and you still can't walk properly. She was right, tested his weight on the injured leg and nearly fell, caught his arm, steadying him. There is another option, said slowly, but it's dangerous for all of us. Tell me. The deep warrens, said before her uncle could speak. The old tunnels beneath the city. They were built during the first expansion before the learned to build tall. They're mostly collapsed now, added. Unstable, dangerous, but they stretch for kilometers underground. Some say they connect to the old mining complexes outside the city. Some say, repeated, you don't know for sure. No one goes into the deep warrens anymore, admitted. The last expedition was 50 years ago. Half the team never came back. Considered his options. Stay here and guarantee deaths when the enforcers found him. Try to run on his injured leg and get caught within hours. Or disappear into tunnels that might be his tomb. "Show me the entrance," he said. Led them through a hidden door behind a stack of medical supplies. Beyond was a narrow staircase carved from living rock, descending into absolute darkness. The air that rose from below was thick and humid, carrying strange chemical scents. "The atmosphere is different down there," explained, handing a breathing mask. "Higher oxygen content, trace gases from the old industrial processes. It should be safe for short periods, but we don't know about long-term exposure." Strapped on the mask and tested his plasma cutter. The tool had enough charge for maybe 6 hours of continuous use. After that, he'd be defenseless in the dark. "Wait," said, pressing something into his hand. It was a small device that looked like a cross between a compass and a music box. "This is a harmonic mapper. It reads the resonance patterns in rock and metal. If the tunnels are as old as we think, they'll have stability markers. Follow the strongest harmonics. They lead to the most stable paths." "How do you know that?" asked. Smiled the first time he'd seen her truly happy. "I want to be an engineer when I grow up, like the humans who saved me." Before could ask about that again, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from above. Military boots on stone. The enforcers had arrived. "Go," whispered urgently. "Now." Started down the stairs, but paused to look back. "Why did you really help me?" Met his eyes. "Because 12 years ago, human engineers broke quarantine protocols to save children from a mine collapse. My sister's daughter was one of them. The humans could have been executed for interfering. They saved 47 children anyway." "Breathed. The council executed those humans to maintain their authority," continued. "But their sacrifice showed us something we'd forgotten, that compassion matters more than law, that some things are worth dying for." The footsteps above grew louder, angry voices, the clinic door being forced open. "Find me in the tunnels," said. "When this is over, find me. I have something to tell you about those human engineers." Then he disappeared into the darkness, not knowing that true parentage would soon become the key to saving every human in the galaxy. Above them, Enforcer Captain began his interrogation, unaware that his greatest enemy was now loose in the very foundations of civilization. The deep warrens. The tunnels swallowed like the belly of some ancient beast. His helmet light carved a narrow cone through absolute darkness, revealing walls covered in strange symbols and pictographs. The harmonic mapper in his hand pulsed with soft blue light, its readings indicating stable passages ahead. The air was thick and humid despite the breathing mask. Every breath felt heavy, laden with the metallic tang of old machinery and something else, something organic and alien. The deeper he went, the more the tunnels felt alive. Followed the strongest harmonic readings, trusting's device to guide him away from unstable sections. The passages were clearly artificial, carved with precision that spoke of advanced engineering. But they were old, older than the city above, older than most records. After an hour of careful walking, he reached a vast cavern. His light barely reached the far walls, but what it revealed made him stop in wonder. Massive machines lined the space, their surfaces covered in the same bioorganic growth that characterized all technology. But these machines were different, primitive by modern standards, yet somehow more honest in their design. Approached the nearest device, running his hands over its surface. The biometal was warm, pulsing with slow rhythms like a sleeping heart. Engineering instincts kicked in despite his exhaustion. These weren't just machines, they were the foundation of civilization, the original terraforming equipment that had shaped this world. "Incredible," he whispered. A sound made him spin around, plasma cutter ready. But it wasn't enforcers, it was water dripping from somewhere high above. The sound echoed strangely in the vast space, creating haunting melodies that seemed almost musical. Found the water source, a natural spring feeding into a biomechanical filtration system. Clean, fresh water. He removed his mask long enough to drink deeply, the liquid tasting of minerals and life. As he replaced the mask, movement caught his eye, something small and quick darting between the machines, then another, and another. "Hello," called out, his voice echoing in the cavern. The movement stopped. For a long moment there was only silence and the distant drip of water. Then, slowly, shapes emerged from behind the ancient machines. They were but unlike any had seen before. Smaller than the surface dwellers with skin that had adapted to the darkness, pale purple, almost translucent. Their eyes were larger, better suited for the perpetual twilight of the deep warrens, and they were old, ancient by standards. "Surface dweller," one of them said in heavily accented standard, "you do not belong here." "Neither do you, apparently," replied, lowering his plasma cutter but not putting it away. "I thought these tunnels were abandoned." "Abandoned by those above," another voice said. An elderly stepped forward, his movements careful but confident. "Not by those who remember." "Remember what?" "The old ways, before the council, before the laws that say some life is worth less than others." The elder studied with eyes that held surprising intelligence. "You are the human from the fallen ship." It wasn't a question, nodded anyway. "I am Keeper," the elder said. "I maintain the old knowledge, the true history that the council has tried to erase." He gestured to the machines around them. "This is where it all began, where and human technology first merged." "That's impossible," said. "Humans only arrived in this system 50 years ago." Keeper smiled sadly. "The council teaches many lies. Would you like to know the truth?" Against his better judgment, found himself nodding. 500 years ago, a human ship crashed on Ra. Not the first contact the council claims happened in your recent history, the real first contact. The survivors were engineers, scientists, explorers. They were dying just as you are dying now. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground air. "My ancestors found them," continued. "Brought them here to these tunnels, healed them, and together human and minds created something beautiful." The Keeper led deeper into the cavern, toward machines that hummed with quiet power. Human mechanical genius combined with biotechnology. We built the systems that still terraform this world. We created the harmony between organic and synthetic that defines our civilization. What happened to the humans? They lived among us for generations, had children. Some of their descendants still walk the surface, though they don't know their heritage. His expression darkened. Until the council decided that genetic purity was more important than the truth. His mind raced. They covered it up, rewrote history. Worse, they hunted down anyone with human ancestry, killed them or drove them into exile. The survivors fled here to the deep warrens where they've hidden for 2 centuries. The implications hit like a physical blow. The humans they're executing now are being killed for crimes their ancestors never committed, for genetics they don't even know they carry. His voice carried centuries of pain. The council has built their power on a foundation of lies and murder. Around them, more pale emerged from the shadows. Men, women, children, all carrying the subtle traces of human ancestry in their features, slightly taller than pure, eyes that were round instead of purely oval, hands with 5 fingers instead of 4. "How many?" asked. "Here in the tunnels, 300, on the surface passing as pure, perhaps 1,000 more." Touched one of the ancient machines, and it responded with a gentle hum. "We are the living proof that the council's ideology is built on lies." "Then why don't you fight back?" "With what?" spread his hands. "We are scientists, engineers, healers. The council controls the military, the enforcers, the orbital platforms. We survive by hiding." Looked around the cavern with new eyes. These weren't just old machines, they were a testament to what humans and could build together. And the people operating them weren't just outcasts, they were family. Distant family, but family nonetheless. "What if I told you," said slowly, "that there are 12 human colonies in nearby systems, colonies with ships, weapons, and people who would fight to protect their own?" The silence in the cavern was absolute. "The council has told us all humans in the galaxy were destroyed years ago," whispered. Pulled a small device from his pocket, his personal communicator, built to punch signals through hyperspace. "Would you like me to prove them wrong?" As he powered up the device, none of them knew that Enforcer Captain had detected the energy signature. The hunter was already on his way down into the darkness, and he was bringing enough firepower to collapse the tunnels entirely. The truth was about to become a weapon of war. Part 4, the hunt begins. Captain moved through the lower city like a predator hunting wounded prey. His scaled hide gleamed under the artificial lights, and his elongated skull bore the ritual scars of the Enforcer Corps. Behind him, 20 elite soldiers followed in perfect formation, their energy weapons humming with lethal charge. The human's energy signature had been brief but unmistakable, a hyperspace communicator powering up somewhere beneath the city. Smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The surface dwellers thought the lower city was forgotten, but the enforcers had sensors everywhere. Thermal imaging shows residual heat signatures in Sector 7G, his lieutenant reported through the comm link embedded in Skull. Multiple life signs, and one that's different. The human confirmed. Prepare breach charges. If they're hiding in the old maintenance areas, we'll bring the entire district down if necessary. Sir, there are civilians in this sector, lower caste workers and... Acceptable losses, cut him off. The Council's directive is clear, no human survivors, no witnesses, no evidence. Deep underground finished encoding his message. The communicator's quantum transmitters locked onto the nearest human colony, New Aberdeen, 8 light-years away. The message was simple but devastating. Government executing humans. Half-human population hidden underground. Send help. How long until they respond? Asked, watching the device with fascination. Hyperspace communication is instantaneous, explained. But it'll take time for them to mobilize a fleet. Days, maybe weeks. We don't have weeks, a new voice said from the tunnel entrance. A young male rushed into the cavern, his breathing ragged. Enforcers are in the lower city. They're sealing off entire blocks. His expression went grim. How many? A full tactical unit. Captain himself is leading them. The name sent a chill through the assembled half-humans. Was notorious even among the enforcers for his brutality. He'd personally overseen the execution of the last human refugees 15 years ago. We have to evacuate, said. The deep passages past the old mining equipment. No, said, struggling to his feet. Running won't solve this. They'll just hunt you down one by one. What do you suggest? Asked. We have no weapons, no ships, no way to fight an entire military force. Looked around the cavern, his engineer's mind cataloging possibilities. The ancient terraforming machines, the biomechanical systems, the fusion of human and technology that had built this world. Maybe we don't need to fight them, he said slowly. Maybe we need to make them fight each other. Explain. Move to the nearest machine, studying its bioorganic interfaces. These systems, they're connected to the surface, aren't they? Part of the planetary infrastructure. Of course, said. They regulate atmosphere, manage water systems, control seismic stability, but they're heavily secured. Only Council-approved technicians can access the primary controls. Council-approved technicians, corrected. But I'm human, and if these machines were built with human engineering principles... He traced a pattern on the device's surface, following mechanical logic instead of biological intuition. The machine responded instantly, its dormant systems coming online with a deep thrumming sound. Displays lit up throughout the cavern, showing real-time data about the planet's environmental systems. Impossible, breathed one of the younger half-humans. Those interfaces haven't responded to anyone in decades. Human engineering, said with grim satisfaction. We build things to last and we build in, he turned to. How much do you know about the city's power grid? Everything, replied. My people have maintained the deep systems for generations. Good, because we're going to give Captain a choice. Face the truth about history or watch his precious pure-blood civilization collapse around him. Above them, the enforcers had found the entrance to the tunnel system. Studied the hatch had used, his face twisting with contempt. Clever human, he murmured, but cleverness won't save you. He signaled his troops to begin their descent, unaware that 3 levels below, a dying human engineer was about to turn the entire foundation of society into a weapon. The harmonic mapper in his hands began to chime with warning tones. The tunnels were about to become a battlefield, and the stakes were nothing less than the truth about what it meant to be alive in a galaxy where fear had replaced compassion. They're coming, whispered. His fingers flew over the ancient control interfaces, human mechanical intuition merging with biotechnology in ways the original designers had never imagined. Around them, machines that had slept for centuries began to wake up. Let them come, said. It's time the Council learned what happens when you try to erase history. The first explosion echoed through the tunnels as the enforcers began their breach, but was no longer thinking about survival. He was thinking about justice, and the price that evil always paid when good people refused to stay silent. Part 5, Ancient Truths. The Enforcer's plasma charges lit up the tunnel like artificial lightning. Led his squad through the breach, their weapons sweeping the darkness ahead. The captain's enhanced senses could detect the human scent, fear, pain, and something else. Determination. Spread out, he commanded. Standard search pattern. Remember, we want the human alive for questioning. 3 levels below worked frantically at the terraforming controls. The ancient systems responded to his touch in ways that understanding of their own technology. Screens flickered to life showing planetary data streams, atmospheric processors, and seismic monitoring stations. The power grid is tied into everything, explained, his voice tight with concentration. Climate control, structural integrity, even the orbital defense platforms. Orbital platforms, paused in his work. The same ones that shot down my ship. The same ones that could shoot down any rescue fleet, confirmed grimly. Felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. The Council hadn't just covered up the truth about human cooperation. They'd built their entire military strategy around preventing anyone from discovering it. Any human fleet that arrived would be destroyed before they could land. Unless, murmured, studying the data streams, someone disabled the platforms from the inside. His fingers found the orbital control interface, a biomechanical system that pulsed with organic rhythms. It was protected by multiple security layers, but could see the underlying human engineering beneath the biotech. Mechanical logic wrapped in living systems. You can't, said, reading his intentions. Disabling the orbital defenses would expose the entire planet. The Council would see it as an act of war. Good, said, because that's exactly what this is. Above them, the sounds of the hunt grew closer. Plasma fire echoed through the tunnels as the enforcers cleared each level methodically. But had grown up in mining colonies, and he knew something the surface-dwelling enforcers didn't. Underground acoustics could be deceiving. He called softly, "How well do you know these tunnels?" The young looked up from where she was monitoring the enforcer positions on a salvaged scanner. Better than anyone except Uncle. Why? I need you to do something dangerous. No, protested. She's just a child. I'm 12, said with dignity, old enough to make my own choices. She looked at with eyes that held far too much understanding for her age. What do you need? Pointed to a section of the cavern wall where bioluminescent growth formed intricate patterns. Those markings, they're not just decorative, are they? They're system indicators. His eyes widened. How did you? Yes. The original builders used bioluminescent guides to show system status, but that knowledge was lost generations ago. Not lost, corrected, just hidden. Human engineers always build in visual status indicators, it's basic safety protocol. He turned to, I need you to guide me to the central control nexus, the main brain of this entire system. That would be in the deepest part of the Warrens, said, past the unstable zones, through passages that haven't been mapped in centuries. Can you do it? Looked at her uncle, then back at. The humans who saved me, they went into dangerous places too, didn't they? To help people they didn't even know. Yes, said softly, they did. Then so will I. The sound of plasma fire grew suddenly louder. The enforcers had found the staircase. We need to move, said urgently. There's a service passage behind the water recycling unit. It leads deeper into the Warrens. As they gathered essential supplies, caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. Among the ancient controls was a display showing surface communications, and he could see enforcer transmissions being relayed to orbit. The orbital platforms weren't just defensive. They were actively scanning for human ships, analyzing hyperspace signatures, preparing to destroy anything that approached the system. His rescue message hadn't gone out into empty space. It had painted a target on every human colony within reach. We have to hurry, he said, the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. If we can't disable those platforms, I've just sentenced thousands of people to death. They entered the service passage just as the first enforcer reached their level. His enhanced hearing picked up the sound of retreating footsteps, and his smile grew wider. The hunt is half the pleasure, he murmured to his lieutenant. Let them run, let them think they can escape. The fear makes the eventual capture so much. but as his squad prepared to follow the fugitives deeper into the tunnels, didn't notice the subtle changes in the bioluminescent wall markings. Systems that had been dormant for centuries were stirring to life, responding to touches from hands that carried genetic memories of their creation. In the deepest part of the Warrens, something vast and ancient was beginning to wake up, and it remembered who its true masters were. Part 6, The Heart of Truth. The central nexus lay at the heart of a natural cavern system, where underground rivers met molten rock deep beneath Ra's surface. Steam rose from thermal vents, creating an otherworldly atmosphere of mist and shadows, and at the center of it all stood the core. Had expected another machine, but the core was something beyond his experience. It wasn't built, it had grown. Biomechanical systems twisted around a central column of living crystal, forming patterns that seemed to shift and breathe. The entire structure pulsed with slow, rhythmic light, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. "The original consciousness," whispered reverently. "When the first humans worked together, they didn't just build machines. They created a living partnership between organic and synthetic intelligence." "It's beautiful," breathed. Approached the core carefully, his engineering instincts warring with awe. The structure was clearly functional. Displays showed data streams from across the planet, and he could see control interfaces scattered throughout the organic growth. But it was also somehow alive, aware of their presence. "How do I interface with it?" he asked. "You don't," said a new voice from the cavern entrance. "You die." Captain stepped into the chamber, his weapon trained on. Behind him came a dozen enforcers, their tactical lights cutting through the steam. The captain's eyes widened when he saw the core, and for a moment, even his predatory confidence wavered. "Impossible," he whispered. "This place was destroyed centuries ago." "Nothing was destroyed," Keeper said, stepping between the enforcers and the half-human families cowering behind him. "Only hidden, protected from those who would pervert its purpose." Shock quickly turned to rage. "Genetic deviance and abominations. The Council will be pleased to learn that the final purification can begin." The Council, said, his hands moving slowly toward the core's interface, built their power on genocide and lies. "Lies," laughed, the sound echoing harshly in the chamber. "Human arrogance even in the face of death. Your species is a plague and we are the cure." "Then explain this," said and touched the core. The reaction was instantaneous. The living crystal blazed with light, and suddenly the chamber filled with images, holograms projected from the core's memory banks. They showed the true history of Ra.